Talk a Lot with Daryl O'Neal. I'm your host. I got my main man with me, Jerome.
What's up, Daryl?
Welcome to Talk a Lot with Daryl O'Neal. I'm your host. I got my main man, Jerome, with
What's
me.
up, Daryl? I'm Brother Josh. You got some other folk in here tonight.
Man, we getting ready to put it down tonight.
Yes.
So today, of course, we're going to give our shout outs, but today we're going to have with us two special guests. We're really going to talk about what they call the Housing Stability Grant Program. And I may have screwed it up a little bit here and there, but the judge and Mr. Henderson, they're going to correct me later on. So, but to my right, I have General Sessions Court Judge Deborah Henderson.
Yes.
And to my left, I have Cedric Henderson, Memphis Area Legal.
Cedric Harris.
Cedric Harris.
Yes.
Cedric Harris.
Yeah, we're not married.
For whatever reason, I decided to marry them. So now they married. Memphis Area Legal Services. Mr. Harris has been there for 20 years or so.
Yes.
And, we'll talk about Judge Henderson. I mean, I don't know if she even remember this, but before she got on the bench, her and I actually had a case against each other. And then she left me hanging and went on the bench and became a judge.
All right.
So I don't know if I was winning or not, but anyway. So really what we want to do is talk about this program. And
you didn't do the shout outs there. You
Okay.
started that way with your
I did.
shout outs because your wife's going to be upset.
she will be upset. So look, we need to give our shout outs, we got people watched it in California, so we give our shout outs to California.
Yeah.
Got some people that watch in Little Rock, Arkansas, so shout outs to Little Rock, Arkansas. We got people that watch in West Memphis, Arkansas, shout outs to West Memphis. People that watch in Memphis, Shelby County, shout out to Memphis, Shelby County. Got people that watch in Mississippi,
Yes.
shout out to Mississippi. Got people that watch in my mom's hometown, the great state of Missouri.
Yes, sir.
So shout out to Missouri. Shout out to my wife, Jerome's wife, everybody up here, shout out to their families.
Yes.
So, if you have a Roku, Fire Stick, Amazon TV, or the SVP TV network app, you can actually watch this show live. And then if you have questions, you can dial in, ask those questions, and we'll answer that question regardless of what we're talking about on the show today. So, with that in mind, Housing Stability Grant. Jerome, have you ever heard that before?
I have. And in fact, I was so infatuated by it that I heard it on WLOK. I think I was about to get out of my car to go inside, and I had to stop and listen. It was amazing because, being a practitioner, I understand how serious it is to try and do something about our housing situation. And then I heard her say one time maybe there was 69,000 evictions prior to the pandemic, and it just blew my mind that it would be to that rate. And so anything to try to curb that is a 100.
Well, and it's funny, because I'm going to talk about, because this is, the company that we have here is a great company to have, but when we talk about providing help, this program is a program that the Shelby County Judicial System, the Shelby County Commissioners, and the Memphis Area Legal Services got together to combine to make a program.
Yes.
And when you look at that, when I talk of, Miles, Memphis Area Legal, if you are underprivileged, what Miles brings to you is an opportunity to get help that you would not receive under normal circumstances.
That's right.
So, Miles is already in the trenches, but to be able to bring the commission in and then to bring a judge in
That's right.
to kind of foster these programs in is a great thing. And most people don't remember this, Judge Henderson. I'm going to tell them about you.
Okay.
There was a time that Jerome and I were joking about this last week. One of my clients called me and he said, I got to be in court at 9 o'clock. I said, man, you're wrong. He said, no, I got a notification that I got to be in court at 9 o'clock. I said, hey, dude, I've been practicing for at least a couple years and there is no 9 o'clock court.
Right.
And he was just adamant there was a 9 o'clock court. So I showed up at 9 o'clock and it was court.
Right.
So what I learned is that General Sessions had started this mediation program. And this was a program to help people try to resolve their issues without the need for expensive, and long litigation.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you've been innovative and an advocate of the people or helping the people for a long period of time.
For a long
yes.
time.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when, I heard about this program from Jerome, and then, I'll be always trying to get you back on the show, Judge,
Right.
and, an opportunity came. I was like, man, I got to get her on here to talk about this. So with that, and Judge Henderson is General Sessions Court judge, judge down in Division 4.
Yes.
Been there.
Since 2006.
Woo, yeah. So I thought it was about 20 years, but it's been 16 years.
Yes.
Oh, so there's been, and Henderson has been practicing law for at least, when I started practicing, he was already practicing, so I would assume he had at least a couple of years at that time. So, I know he's got at least a couple decades with Memphis Area Legal Services. So, when you got people that are, dedicated to the process, you just can't get any better.
Yes.
So, Judge, what is the Housing Stability Grant Program?
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a little bit of background
Please.
first
Please.
about how
Yeah.
this started. First of all, let me thank you for having us on this show. We need to get the word out
Right.
because having the grant and having people available to help doesn't do any good if the public doesn't know about the
Yes.
program. So thank you so much for having us on today. But let's go back to 2023 when I was elected as president of the Tennessee General Sessions Judges.
Okay.
And of course, I went through a little interview after the election, and it was published in the administrative office of the court's newsletter. One of the things that I said during that interview was that someday I would like to see a housing court in Shelby County. Because having been on the bench since 2006, dealing with evictions every single day, then I see the problems that people face and the effect that evicting families has on the community as a whole, quite frankly. Well, during the same time that that article came out, there was an exhibit at the Ben Hooks Library. The title of the exhibit was The Effects of Eviction. And it highlighted and emphasized the number of evictions that occur in Shelby County on a yearly basis.
I can't imagine that number, Judge.
Yeah, and at that time it was about 30,000 per year that families who were being evicted from their homes. So, Commissioner Erica Sugarman had attended the opening ceremony for that exhibit, and she was overwhelmed and sorely disappointed with hearing those numbers. She came to me, and together we decided that we had to do something about it. And I think that that is so apropos because sitting in Division 4 of General Sessions, that's where Judge Sugarman sat
Right.
during his many years on the bench.
That's right,
He
yeah.
was certainly an icon in Shelby County for civil rights. I couldn't do things the way that Judge Sugarman did,
And he took care of me.
but I had to find a way to try to be half as relevant as he was in my work. And so that's why I started the mediation program long before the housing program existed. All right, so fast forward to our meeting with, my meeting with Commissioner Sugarman, and we approached the Shelby County Commission and asked for funding to establish a program. We had a number of goals for the program. The first goal, of course, is to educate the public. Landlords and tenants need to be educated. So very often, and when I say educated, I mean about their responsibilities and duties and rights under the Uniform Residential Landlord and Tenant Act. You all know that that is the act
Yes.
that governs landlords and tenants in Shelby County. So our first goal is to educate them about what that act says they can and cannot do. One of the things that I hear all the time from tenants is, well, no, I didn't pay my rent because my landlord wouldn't repair this, that, or the other. Or I will hear complaints from tenants that the landlord came and just changed the locks. And so I couldn't, since I didn't pay my rent, he wouldn't let me in the premises. We know that neither of those things can be done.
Sure.
So if we can educate them, and we have started through this program trying to reach out to the community. We have gone to churches and community centers. We've been on radio. We have these flyers, as you can see. They're called the Housing Stability Solutions flyers, where we are presenting seminars to help people understand their rights. All right, educate them. And then we hope to be able to resolve issues between landlords and tenants before the matter gets into litigation. You all know that I'm bound by the law.
Yes.
So, and as of July 1, when the legislature decided that they would, number one, shorten the amount of time that tenants would have for continuance, and number two, make it almost impossible to appeal the decisions, that makes it even more important to try to resolve it before litigation occurs. So, if we can get them to mediate their issues, we can, and Mr. Harris has been doing a fantastic job with that. He'll talk more about it when he gives his presentation. But if we can get them to talk to each other and get the landlord to understand they may need to be just a little bit lenient. Maybe this tenant has been in the property 10 or 15 years. They've had a rough problem to occur, surgery, death of a family member, those kinds of things can throw them behind financially. And if the landlord will just be willing to give them an opportunity to make payments and catch it up, that tenant generally wants to stay.
Yes.
Secondly, there are some tenants who want to stay in their properties, but the property is in bad condition. They need repair.
Right.
And the tenant cannot certainly afford to repair it themselves.
And it's not their duty
And
either.
it's not their duty, that's right. And they're having to pay huge utility bills because of that. They can't afford to pay both the rent and the
That's right.
large utility bills. So we have a way of dealing with that too. Keep in mind, this program is designed to keep people in their homes. Now, let's not get it twisted. We're not encouraging tenants not to pay their rent.
That's
That
for
is
sure.
not what this program is about.
That's right.
You still have to pay your rent.
Right.
But we will step in if you're having problems with the condition of the home. We have an inspector who will go out and take a look at the home and give the court a report as to whether or not that home or house, apartment, whatever it may be, is habitable. If repairs need to be made, he will tell us what repairs there are that need to be made, how serious the repairs are, and make a determination as to whether that home is habitable. And then I might, after that, after getting his report about the habitability, sometimes I might have to have a real estate expert let me know whether or not the amount of money the tenant has been paying for rent is a reasonable amount. Is it a market value for the condition of that home? So this program is really, really designed to try to seal the cracks in the landlord-tenant relationships.
It's funny you say that, Judge, and I just want to back up for a minute. During the COVID pandemic, there were a number of programs that were put in place there was some rent protection programs.
Yes.
There were some laws that said if you receive federal money you couldn't evict a person. I mean, there was a lot of things that were going on. But even though those things were meant to help the landlord and to help the tenant, there was a substantial amount of consternation about those rules and those laws.
Yes.
So how, with this program, I mean, it's a great program, but how do you overcome that consternation between the landlord and the tenant when they were like, this guy ain't been paying, and I don't care, I can find somebody else to do the same thing, and I'll let him live in my raggedy house and he'll be satisfied?
Well, first of all, during the pandemic, there were a lot of programs, and we were under basically an injunction. We could not evict people during the pandemic.
Right.
It's a moratorium.
But a moratorium,
Right.
thank you. But as you well know, one of our very fine attorneys, Mr. Kahane,
Mr. Josh.
Mr. Josh, filed a lawsuit in federal court on behalf of his clients, who are the landlords themselves. And the court found that moratorium should be lifted. And so we then, I believe it may have been March of 22.
It was.
When it was lifted.
It
And
was.
so we started with the evictions again. But to answer your last question about what would I do, I think in essence what you're asking me is, if the landlord evicts this person, tenant number A, what's to stop him from putting tenant B in that same property without doing any repairs? Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay, well, interestingly enough, that question is something that we considered as well, and that's the reason we have the services of our code inspector. Because once they tell me that that property cannot be inhabited, if we have to move the current tenant out without them being able to make the repairs while that person is there, we are not going to allow them to move another tenant in. He will make his report. I will contact the utility company, Memphis Light, Gas and Water, and under an order, say this property is not to be re-rented to anyone until it is cleared by our inspector again.
Wow.
So after the repairs are made, the inspector will go back, give the court a second report to say everything looks well now, it's okay to re-rent it, or it's still not up to code and it's still not able to be re-rented.
Oh, wow. Now let me switch sides just a minute, though. I want to come back to this. I'm the procedures guy and
Yes.
the rules guy, and I got a couple of weird concerns, but we'll talk about that later.
Right.
Memphis Area Legal also has a housing program itself outside of its other legal things that it provides. What made Memphis Area Legal want to be in this particular program?
Okay, that's a good question, and thank you for asking. By the way, my name is Cedric Harris. I'm a housing attorney. I've been doing it probably 20 years or longer. What's unique is we have a separate entity that just covers housing. It's called the Memphis Fair Housing Center. So we don't just deal with just landlord and tenant issues, discrimination, or anything subsidized housing, Section 8. We cover everything with housing. And so it would be a perfect match that we were already doing it. We already had the systems in place to have clients to do intake. That number, and the number is, I'm gonna go ahead and give it now, it's 901-432-4663. That's our housing intake line. That's the number you would call if you need help with this program, if you need help with housing in general. And by the way, 4663 means home. That is the alphabet comparison. So we already have the system in place. It's just a matter of merging with Judge Henderson's vision, which is just fantastic.
Oh, for sure.
It's fantastic because some jurisdictions actually have housing court. And really, if you think about it, General Sessions, civil, it is basically housing court. About 80% of the cases are detainer warrants and FEDs and evictions. The rest are probably collection for the most part. It's just you've got 6 divisions. So, it's not one unified court. It's not like family court and you've got 2 family court judges. Now, the thing that's unique about these, like Massachusetts, for example, their laws are very lenient, and they're more neutral for both the landlord and the tenant.
Okay.
So it's easier to actually enforce it in a housing court jurisdiction.
But our IRLTA law is that way too, though. I mean, IRLTA basically, I mean, and Jerome and I've had this conversation before. The way I understand the IRLTA set out, I mean, there's this parallel of things that if you're a landlord, you're required to do, and there's a parallel of things that if you're a tenant, you're required to do. And if either one of those people do not do what they're supposed to do, then there is, for lack of a better word, there is consequences.
Right. So the issue with that is the landlord is normally the plaintiff in the
Absolutely.
eviction, right? They're the plaintiff. They're the ones that want possession of the property. So right then, the ball is in their court because they have the cause of action. So if there's something that you're saying the landlord did not do, they breached their contract, now you have to basically countersue
Absolutely.
for breach of contract
Absolutely.
and have companion cases and have it all heard at the same
Oh,
time.
absolutely.
But because most people don't have legal representation,
Exactly.
when they start talking about he didn't fix this, he didn't repair that, the judges are kind of like, well, I understand that,
Right.
but we're here today because of your breach, your default. So, and like I said, in some states, it's much more lenient where the tenant could raise those
Right,
issues
right.
in the same proceeding and say, you know, Your Honor, there's diminution of rental value. You know, what I love is this, what I love what Judge Henderson is doing. When that inspector comes in and he's got that report with the pictures and the photos, and you see all the mold, you see all the leaks from the ceiling, from the AC, these are the most common problems. I would say water leaks and mold is probably number one. You know, you've got electrical outlets, you may have hot water tanks, those kind of things, they're all related. And I think when it gets to that point, it's just not about repairs. It's about conditions.
Yes.
See, that's the difference. The landlord tenant, it'll address repairs. But when you're talking about the sewage coming up in the plumbing, that's not something the tenant can do a 14-day notice to say, you know, you cure it or I pay for it and deduct the rent, because
Right.
that's going to be $5,000. So that's not really workable. But again, Judge Henderson's vision is to kind of move us kind of towards that direction where there is consideration for other things other than, did you pay the rent? Or you're late on the rent, you defaulted on the rent, do you have copies of receipts that you paid the rent? And so, you know, I thought about this today on the way here. You know, if you got a mold situation, the inspector will tell the judge it is not habitable. For the safety, health of the tenants, it is not habitable. They're gonna have to move out, and they should have probably moved out before now.
Right.
Because they have exposure now to mold, which is gonna cause medical issues. Now we're kind of getting into a tort,
Right.
you know, personal injury.
Right.
But if you think about it, and the judge has asked the lawyer after the report comes in, she looks at the lawyer for the landlord and says, how much you think it's worth living in this property under these conditions? I don't care what your lease said, it's $1,100. I understand that's what's on the paper.
Right.
That's what the contract says.
Right.
But if you were living in that property, attorney, how much do you think you should pay for rent?
Right.
Now, she didn't say anything. What she said was, Your Honor, we're going to let him do a follow-up inspection.
Right.
We're going to get our contractors in.
Exactly.
We're going to do the repairs. See, none of this would have happened without her vision,
That's for
really.
sure.
It wouldn't have gone to
For
that next
sure.
level.
Yeah.
And they're very humble about it, you know. And they're like, yes, Your Honor, we'll do, you know, whatever you say. Because, you know, and we'll put a no occupancy on the house. That's very important.
Yes.
Because we don't want to repeat the cycle of someone else coming in. You know, what amazes me is that with code enforcement, when the inspectors come out, they already know. This house has already been inspected.
That's right.
Maybe 3 times in the last year. That same address. And the landlord didn't make the repairs, even though they may have gotten cited in environmental court, but they just keep doing the same thing. So even though the lawyer on that particular, and that was Wednesday when we had this case, when the lawyer did, I'm not gonna name the lawyer, when the lawyer didn't say anything, I wanted to say, Your Honor, I can tell you how much the rent would be. It would be $100 a month for storage fee,
Right.
because I still have my furniture and items, and that's all that it's worth, a storage fee.
Right.
I mean, well, and at least in a storage fee, you got climate control.
Right.
You know, at least you got air and heat and all that.
Right.
So, going back to the mediation part, that's the other part that I like, because I don't get a chance to do that.
Right.
You know, we have mediators, and I would push it towards mediation, because what I've learned is that landlord-tenant, it is a contract. But guess what? It's like marriage, because a marriage is a contract. So when they first get in there, it's like a husband, it's like the honeymoon phase.
Yeah,
Oh, everything is great, it looks fine, you know, all this. Now mold is in the walls, it hadn't surfaced yet, right? All the problems are gonna surface shortly after they move in. So it is a fairly good relationship in the beginning, but it soon becomes, especially with repairs, it becomes toxic very quickly. And when it escalates to court outside of Judge Henderson's program, it's not going to be it's usually not going to be in favor of the tenant.
For sure.
Now, I'm glad you, so I know Miles, again, with the housing program, I mean, you guys had to do some kind of, I guess, analysis to say that there's this many evictions in this area, and because there's this many evictions, we need to be a part of this program also. I mean, what was it that made Miles say this is a program that we have to be a part of?
Well, again, because it's innovative, number one.
Okay.
Number two, we already have existing HUD grants. We've got grants from the city, which is fair housing and discrimination, and basically any housing. We actually have an ordinance grant from the city. Both of them together is probably less than 200,000. But if you consider how many cases that would cover, that's really just 2 lawyers, really 2 or 3 lawyers and a paralegal. So we have federal grants, HUD grants. That the thing about those grants is they're very specific in terms of the delivery of services. So this expands it. For example, this is not an income restriction grant. It's not based upon your income. We know it's not, because landlords own property, have a lot of money in general. Now they may only own one property, but most of them own more than one property, and most of them, and we're really focusing on the single family dwelling. You know, the single family homes, duplexes, quadruplexes. You know, now we can, once it gets to court, it's going to probably involve apartment complexes, but it's already in court at that point. So that's when the judge determines whether or not it should go to that next level of saying what's really going on in this case. You know.
Let me ask you, Judge. I mean, and Jerome, I was thinking about this. You know, I'm always the guy, you know, that's.
You ought to watch us sometime.
I gotta, you know, because I'm looking at this program and I'm absolutely awed by it, but I'm also absolutely intimidated. And let me just tell you my thought process. So we have General Sessions Court, but we got Environmental Court. Environmental Court deals with environmental issues and different things of that nature. And then General Sessions Courts deal with the civil litigation aspects of it. So how does there become, how do you guys prevent that concern that Environmental Court may have that General Sessions Court is in their neighborhood?
Okay. Well, first of all,
it's enough for everybody.
Absolutely.
For sure.
You know,
no one needs to be feel slighted, because
I don't think he's slighted, but
for everyone.
But
to try to resolve this problem.
First of all, we have talked. Judge Dandridge and I have talked many times about this program. And he knows what I'm doing and how I am doing it. We're not interested in the big apartment complexes.
Right.
The Pepper Tree no longer exists, but let's say Pepper Tree was there, we would not be interested in Pepper Tree. We only want this one individual who comes in and says, I live in this house and I have a problem with my landlord. Or it could be a duplex, as he said, or a triplex, but the small units. We're not interested in the ones that Judge Dandridge is going to have coming back over and over and over again. So we're not trying to intrude on his territory when he comes.
We're not trying to steal his thunder.
No, we are not.
Let it rain, let it rain.
But I will say this as well now. Sometimes Judge Dandridge gets a case where it's an environmental issue, but the tenant's not paying the rent. He can't deal with evictions over there. So he has to send that over to us. So there are ways that we can work together and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to live in decent housing.
And you know,
And that's the goal.
that was the thing that I was hoping that you would get to, Cedric, about how it's also beneficial to the landlord as well, because the grant will assist the landlord in bringing it up to code. Isn't that correct? So,
Well,
I
not
heard you guys talk about it.
Yeah, not monetarily.
Okay.
But we partner with like housing community development.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. There is a
Right.
way.
Right.
There's a way to
There-
help the
there-
landlord, so the landlord would not be burdened
Right.
by trying to get this property up to
Right,
par.
right.
That's
As part
what-
of the educational process, we will steer them
Yeah.
towards HCD because there are programs out there for them
Yeah.
to upgrade and really, in some cases, rehabilitate
Right,
their
right.
property. And on most of it, we talk about conditions. When you get to conditions, you're really talking about rehabbing that property.
Right,
Because
right.
it's not just the mold, it's the plumbing, it's the electrical. I mean, sometimes the inspector will come back and he will say, it needs to be no occupancy, no vacate, they need to vacate and they need to come in there and
Practically
just
gut it.
it out.
Right, and then
do
start
it.
over again. See,
Because
Well,
did you know that there?
I did not,
Yeah.
but so I have a couple fears though.
Okay.
So, because the way I understand the rule is when we look at a house or apartment or wherever someone's living, in order for them to get some of the benefits of the law, the property has to be uninhabitable. That's number one. And when a judge looks at whether it's not as uninhabitable means you need to leave.
That's right.
And so if a property is uninhabitable, but the person would rather be in this uninhabitable scenario than to leave, then when you put them in this program and say that nobody be in this property at this particular time, I mean, where do they go?
Okay.
That's a good point. That's a good question.
We have, that's why we are establishing all of these community partners.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so if we have somebody, we don't want them to be homeless.
No.
Right.
You know,
That was my concern.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't want them to
See,
be
it
homeless.
says
So this
keeping
says
you
housed.
Right.
Well, hey y'all, that's what they're telling you. You gonna have somewhere to stay. Okay. All right.
We are developing and constantly adding to our list of landlords who are willing to consider these people as
That's right.
tenants
Yeah.
if they have vacancies in their own group of homes.
Okay.
And so we're trying to work with them. We're bringing on board an administrator.
Okay.
And that will be part of the job of the administrator, is to keep in touch with all of these various community partners.
Okay.
So when somebody comes in, whatever their problem may be, even if we're not able to help them, we will know where to send them
Right.
and in order for them to get the help.
Well, again, I'm that guy.
Come
man.
on. I know
Come
you
on, bring it on,
I've had
devil's
that before, I
advocate.
know.
Bring it on, devil's advocate. Come on with it. We got you.
So, the issue or the concern, so what prevents you from becoming jaded one way or the other and allowing, so say for instance, a landlord has this house and the tenant is living there and they've agreed and they know what this house is supposed to look like when they started. I mean, it was not good when it started. I knew that it wasn't good when we started. I understood that my rent was going to be reduced, but I still got behind. Now that I'm behind, I'm going to take advantage of this bad condition that I already knew before I walked into, and that's why my rent got reduced, because it was going to take time to bring this up. And now it comes to you, and you send your inspector out, and he said, man, my dog couldn't live there. I knew that as a tenant before I got the lease. This guy was going to lease it to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to you at a reduced place because I need to have it occupied, and I'm going to work to get it up to a certain level. But you still got to handle your business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let me be very clear. This program is not a program to keep tenants from paying their rent.
That's
right.
That is not what
That's
the purpose of this program is.
Okay.
And in fact, one of our community partners, ERA, is located right there in the courthouse. They're there every day. They have money left over from COVID monies. And each and every day, I send people around to room 134, which is
Okay,
where they're
all right.
located, so that they can make application if
I was going there.
they're
That's what I was trying to get you to go.
okay. If they can make application for the money, if they're behind on their rent already, even if it's a situation where I know I'm going to have to grant a judgment for possession, I can still send them around. But the thing that I try to do is get the landlord to understand I am sending them to a place where they will probably get money. Are you willing to wait rather than execute on the possession eviction?
Okay.
Are you willing to wait for 2 or 3 weeks to see if they qualify,
right.
if they get this money? And most of them, I've had very few, maybe 1 or 2,
Yeah, I
who
was
will
just
say, no, I don't think I want to wait. But most of them, if they know that they're going to get the money, they're more than willing to wait.
This is a really good program. I mean, are there restrictions? Are there things that you can't have? I mean, is there a money limit or money max or money too much, not enough? I mean,
There is no money limit with
Okay.
this program. No
Income
money.
restriction, no cost.
okay,
Yeah, no
okay.
cost.
All right, no
Yeah.
income restriction.
Now,
That's right.
and look, look. They got these nice flyers that they talk about this, and it says, reduce the high number of evictions in Shelby County. So I would assume that you track the number of evictions
We are tracking.
now and how many people that you put in this program.
Yes. And,
Yes.
you wanna
As a
talk
matter of
about
fact,
that some,
yeah,
Mr. Harris?
let me just tell you about what's happening in Memphis.
Okay.
Through the eviction lab. This is a Princeton University study. You can look it up. It covers every city, every county in the United States.
Okay.
And it tracks how many evictions are filed and how many renter households there are. So the last 12 consecutive months, going back to July of 2023 until last month, it was 28,129 eviction filings. That's just in Memphis.
Oh, wow.
In Memphis, not Shelby County.
Right.
Just Memphis. And there are 163,000 renter households. So if you do the math on that, that's about 17% of people that could possibly be evicted or under the threat of eviction. Now, coincide that with the poverty rate in Memphis. This is not surprising to me at all that it's this high, because the
Right.
poverty rate is about 22, 23%.
Exactly.
That's in Memphis. Shelby County is a little lower.
Right.
So it's an economic, social, injustice. And let me tell you, I'm going to compare Memphis to Nashville.
Okay.
Nashville, during the same period, 1 year, 12 consecutive months, going back to July of last year, 10,300 cases, almost 2/3 less.
Right.
Now, their poverty, that's about a 9% people being affected. But their poverty rate in Nashville is 14%. I'm surprised it's that high, but it's 14%. But I think this is the difference. The difference is the median household income. See, that's the difference. In Memphis, it's 64,000, and in Nashville, it's almost 100,000, 96,000. So, of course, better
So
job.
I think y'all fluffing these numbers now. I know good and well that the median income in Memphis ain't no $64,000.
Yes, it is. The median household income, that could be more than 2 people in the house.
Right.
You mean about 10 people in the house?
Well, if it's 10 and 5
Yeah,
people on
no,
a job,
Whatever it is, that's what the number
It's
is.
more than two. It's more than 2 people. Let me tell you that.
Look, well, then it could be 5 people and they
Yeah,
all work.
yeah.
They all
They're all making money.
Minimum
Okay.
wage jobs. But no,
Okay.
and I'm sorry, let me correct that. Metro Memphis.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm sorry.
All right, I was saying.
I am sorry. I'm sorry. You are correct.
Okay.
Metro, including the
Suburbs.
suburban
I-
area.
Now I'm
You're
with you.
correct.
Yeah,
And
okay.
then Nashville is Metro,
Right,
Nashville,
right.
Franklin County, all that.
Because there is a Memphis proper, and that
Yeah.
poverty level is
No,
different
oh,
than
yeah.
that. The
Oh,
poverty
yeah.
le- okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, the Memphis property, the metro
Yeah, okay,
area. Because
okay.
if you think about the eviction, it's just not the city limits
Exactly,
of Memphis.
exactly.
So I'm looking at those two comparisons, but
But it's still pretty high.
Yeah.
And a substantial difference.
right.
Yeah.
So because we already in our office, we already have the software
Mm-hmm.
and the database based upon the grant assignment. See, this grant has a specific number for assignment. So even if I'm the only attorney that's doing it right now, but whoever handles the case, we can track those numbers by the special problem code and the funding code, and then we have outcomes. So it would be very easy, because we're gonna have to report this back to the county.
Sure.
They gonna wanna know. Sugarman's wanna know, and everybody.
Sure.
Okay, we gave you this money. Well, now what y'all been doing with it? How many people have you helped? What kind of results are you getting?
But you know, the other thing is, we're talking about 29,000 evictions. That's saying that's one person, but we know that households contain more than one person.
Yeah.
So we could be
That's
talking
families.
about, oh my God, how many people who would be displaced
Right.
Yes.
without the assistance that this program is offering.
Yes, and of course, the eviction lab does have racial and gender factors.
Okay.
So believe it or not, and I know you wouldn't find this surprising at all, I think it's 58% African American, that's nationwide, and I think 80% gender female. And this is just anecdotal, because I'm in court every week. It appears to me young, single, black female with multiple dependents
Right.
in the household. So now you're talking about could be 5, 6, 7, 8
That's
people
right.
in the household.
That's right.
And
That's
so
right.
with really this working 2 jobs, they're struggling. The rents have gone up considerably
That's
since
right.
COVID,
Correct.
That's right.
right? And
Right.
so if you got a higher median income, you can probably sustain that increase.
That's right.
But not in Memphis proper, as you said,
Right.
with those type of incomes. So another part of this is that, let's say someone lost a job, and that would dramatically affect their payment of the rent and
Sure.
possibly threaten them with eviction. We're trying to partner with other people that would have job training programs. You see, because we're trying to take a holistic approach.
No, I like that. That
You
job
know,
training
it's-
program.
it's-
It's nice.
Yeah, that's just one example.
Right.
We got partners like Catholic Charities that can help with emergency housing, and United Way. I've been doing this a long time,
Right.
so I don't like to make enemies with anybody
That's
that I
right.
deal with, and I'm trying to be nice
That's
to
right.
even opposing counsel.
That's right. That's right.
Even
Exactly.
opposing counsel, because that's not going to help my client
Right.
whip like this all the time.
Right.
So whatever outreach we can get, that's what we're doing, because it does take a village to save a family.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, them numbers those are tough numbers.
They're staggering, aren't they?
Yeah, how big does this program? Because you got 29,000 evictions. That's a rough number. You and I know that probably is closer to maybe it's 29,000. That's probably 60 or 70,000 people. When you talk about
Quite
The
possibly.
number of
yeah.
people in
yeah,
the house.
people
That's
in the
right.
house. So how much money? Does a program like this require some type of tax increase? Is it going? What is it going to require in order for this program to continue to be successful? I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, that's a good question. It's
Yeah, it is.
probably more of a question for the county commission
Yeah.
itself.
Well, I know
But
Erica
they-
well, yeah.
But for right now, what we are trying to do is simply make this pilot program successful,
Right,
so
exactly.
that they can recognize the need to continue it.
Absolutely.
Even if we continue just the pilot
Absolutely.
portion of it for next year, I think it still would make a difference, because realistically, we started working on this, I would say, in June.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
That's when
June,
we
so
had
it's
kickoff.
relatively new
New,
for
yes,
us.
right.
And in order to see a major difference, I think it's gonna take us even into
Oh.
next year
Oh, absolutely.
sometime.
Yeah, easily.
Because we're spending most of our time right now trying to get the word out to people. We're here, come see us,
Yeah.
call us.
Right.
We wanna help you, so.
Is there? Again, and this is a phenomenal program, and this is probably Jerome's neighborhood. Unfortunately, and probably Memphis proper more so than Shelby County as a whole, people hit those problems more than once. So how many times can they utilize this program? Or is there no time restriction on it?
Well, let me say this. As far as our program goes, they would be able to utilize our program as often as they need it. There are no restrictions on that. However, when you talk about education and when you talk about teaching them what their responsibilities are, surely,
I love it.
if it gets through to
I
them,
love it,
they're
Judge.
not going to keep coming back
I love
over
it.
and over again, particularly if they're coming because they haven't paid rent.
You're teaching them to fish.
That's right.
That's right. So they understand that we can't continue to come back
That's right.
over and over again. I've learned
That's right.
how to budget because all of these other partners that they have there.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
right.
okay.
Are you a pastor?
Yeah.
That was a biblical reference.
I had to ring there.
Okay.
But that all, I mean, again, that all sounds really good.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. There's only so many jobs. There's only so many opportunities. There's, I still have a family, and I'm only bringing in so much money, and there's so many things that have to go to so many different places. And Jerome and I talked about it. If you have a job and you make $20 an hour, that equates to about $40,000 a year, give or take. If you do the numbers, so $40,000 a year, your monthly income is going to be somewhere around $3,000, give or take. Your bring home pay is going to probably be about $2,100, give or take. So you got $2,100 of usable income. Okay, so you got rent, you got utilities, you got food.
You may have transportation.
We ain't even getting there.
Okay.
Because right now, you got transportation, but you don't have insurance. Because so I got transportation because I got to get back and forth, but I don't have insurance. I got gas. You see what I'm getting at?
I understand where you're going with that, but again, I get back to education because it appears that if you know that you only have $2,100 of disposable income, you don't need a home that's costing you $1,700 of those $2,100.
No, now you shouldn't be having that one.
That's okay.
You should have $1,700 home.
Well,
now.
think
That's
about
exactly
it.
right.
You need to understand
That's
what your
exactly
limitations are.
Right.
Exactly.
Perhaps we need to help you find someplace that is less expensive and will spend less of that $2,100 each month for those basic necessities.
And I guess that's where I am there because the question then becomes because we're talking about a habitable place, but a habitable place at a reasonable income. And so what is a two-bedroom apartment going for these days? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, what is a 3-bedroom apartment?
Yeah.
I got 3 kids. Now, and I got 2 bedrooms, so all 3 of my kids gonna sleep in 1 bedroom.
But there you got to remember they're already doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we're doing, what this program is designed to do is to enhance their ability to maintain that
Right.
in a more reasonable environment. The environment is better. They're now socializing in a different area. And so that's what this is designed to do, and that's why I love it so much. That's why it's important to try to spread the word.
Oh no,
about
this
it.
is
Yeah.
look, this is a phenomenal program.
Right.
And look, I'm asking questions because again, I don't want a person to think that this is the will.
Oh, absolutely not.
And I don't
Right.
want a person to think that this is the correction of life. This is an opportunity that you can have good, bad, or indifferent, and this is a place. It's just like bankruptcy.
Right.
It's just a place. I didn't do well this time. I need to start over.
I need
Exactly.
to start over.
I need a do-over.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
And the program does the same thing. So, how do you determine the amounts that people can get for whatever the scenario? No, I ain't talking about that part. I'm
Okay.
talking about the necessity amount.
We don't make that
Right.
determination.
Okay. Oh.
Okay. We send them, if you're talking about the ERA program that gives them money, we send them, that's their
That's the
completely
county.
separate program. We simply refer them to that program, and then they make the determination based on how far behind on their rent, also whether or not they've gotten any money already this year, kind of thing, and then they tell them how much they're able to give them.
So when
And it's like a one, this is like a lump sum, one time.
One shot, one kill.
Right.
So this is still money from the CARES
Right.
Act,
Yeah,
from the COVID
uh-huh.
program.
Okay, so the money still comes from the CARES Act.
Yes,
Okay.
this is still the CARES Act,
Okay.
COVID relief, the pandemic,
Right.
but this is
Right.
the spend down.
Right.
So this is what was left
Right.
after
Okay.
2022.
Okay, okay.
Basically, they stopped in 2023.
Right.
And then, of course, they did an audit, and when they found out Memphis had about $10 million left, they said, you're going to have to spend that down. It's going back to the Department of Treasury. So
Okay.
they're trying to spend every dime.
Ah.
And let me tell you, it's easy to qualify. You have to be behind, and you have to have been affected by COVID since March 2020 to the present.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
so
now
here's the
what?
$1 million word. What is affected?
Well, no,
Whatever-
I mean,
whatever-
reduction in
Loss of job.
Yeah.
loss of
Right.
job,
Okay.
whatever.
Long-term
Hours cut,
habit,
yeah.
maybe
Right.
COVID,
Okay.
And so it's going back
Right.
to March. It's not like you have COVID now.
Ah,
I
so
may have
it's-
had
it's-
COVID and just gotten behind, and now it's finally hitting me.
Ah, so it's a
it's
retroactive.
affecting
Right.
me. It's self-attestation. You
Right.
don't even have to have any paycheck stubs to say, this is my loss.
That's beautiful.
It's just saying you know.
That's beautiful.
That's what you're saying, and that's what it is.
Then, okay, so that's, the CARES Act is what gives the financial relief for the rents.
That's right.
Yes.
Then this money here, the stability money for the housing or to fix the houses up, comes from this other money from the Shelby County Commission.
No, the money from the stability grant only funds us making sure that it gets repaired.
Okay.
We can refer the homeowners, the landlords, to other agencies like City of Memphis who has money to help homeowners
Okay.
repair their homes.
Okay.
Again, it's all about referring them to the right locations,
Okay.
to the right entities, so that they can get done what we want to see done.
Okay,
Right.
so you guys connect the dots.
We
Right.
connect the dots.
Oh, that's a
Right.
good thing. Okay,
Right.
so because if a tenant or a landlord, they may not know where to go.
That's right. Oh, so many of them don't.
All right, and so you
many
guys
of
are, for lack of a better word, the pool.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
this is the pool. Okay.
Right, right.
Okay.
And also, I'm going to say, you asked about how do they determine, we're talking about $1,700 in rent, and they've only got $2,100. That may be a situation where Mr. Harris needs to help them apply for MHA housing or something
Okay.
that would then help pay
Right.
part of their rent
Okay.
Right.
for them in the future. Now, we know those are long lists to be on, and they rarely become available. But if we find out while we're utilizing this temporary fix, then he may be able to help them look to the future and say, okay, if I get on Memphis Housing Authority's list and can get an apartment there, then I won't have this $1,700.
Well, I love the fact that, you get somebody to come out here and evaluate this home and say that this home it ain't worth that. But that was pre-COVID. Post-COVID, we've seen houses that are just shacks that are worth $100,000 and $200,000 and they need to be fixed up. So how do we overcome that inflation of real estate?
Well, that's not what we're designed to do.
Well,
Right.
that's a concern.
Well, I'm
yeah,
saying
right.
it is a
So
concern,
Alice
but-
in Wonderland, this is not the panacea for all of the housing.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Let me tell you, this is a seed program.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
This is just the beginning.
Okay.
If
Okay.
we can show some impact, even if it's a small impact, some improvement on the tenants' conditions, we're working with the landlords. We would go back. Judge Henderson would go back. She'd probably bring me with her. We'll go back to the county and say, "Look, we're going in the right direction with this.
Okay.
This is the way to go." So now we need more money to make a bigger impact, because the grant is line item budget.
Right.
It's to pay the inspector. It's to pay for an administrator. It's
That's
to
what
pay-
I didn't
It's to
know.
pay for me.
Yeah,
This is
there
what
you
I'm
go.
telling you. It's
Okay.
paid.
Yeah, there you go.
Judge Henderson's the only one.
I don't get that.
She don't get paid.
Damn,
So-
Judge.
She don't get paid. It was her idea. So all those line items are in the budget. It's a budget.
Okay.
And we have to follow the budget. So,
What does success look like?
wow.
What do I think it
Yeah,
would look
yeah,
like?
Yeah, interesting.
I think that if we could get at least 10% this first year,
Okay.
this first year, if we could get at least 10% of the people who come to us, we could keep them in their homes, make certain that those homes are habitable, that they're not dealing with mold issues and plumbing that doesn't work, that kind of thing. I think we have been successful.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? What's your vision of success? What does it look like?
Wow. I've already seen improvements,
All
and we've
right.
only been doing it for a few months. I have actually seen
Yeah,
it.
you got a bigger vision because you've been in the housing
Yes.
industry for a
Right.
long time. So
Right.
your vision is
Right,
So,
and the judge is different because she's on the bench.
Right, right,
So
right.
hers is kind of, it's not as wide lens as mine.
Right.
Because she still has to, follow the statute and
That's
follow
right.
the rules, and still try to work in something that's more equitable. Which is the whole problem. But we had a case where the house wasn't bad, but by the time there was a delay in going back to court on the follow-up. And during that time, they had 2 trucks, 3 contractors. They were just, when I saw the pictures, I was like, this can't be the same address. That's what success looks like.
Right.
Because
well, they wanted to make this thing look better. Yeah,
of
yeah.
course,
No,
of course, but that's
yeah.
and although my client had already moved out initially, we are still working with him with some other landlords to try to get him. He's living with his mom, but I think we can get him rehoused. But for that next tenant on the address,
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be much better.
So what does that success look like? You said you already seen it. So what?
well, I've seen it's just encouragement.
Okay.
Because we are making an impact, and
Okay.
and we just literally June, and here it is August.
Right.
So we're only talking what 2 months then.
Well, 2 or 3 months that we
months, yeah.
actually
Have been working.
rolled out the program,
Right.
because once you get a grant, you have to figure out how we're going to implement the grant.
Right.
So a big portion was to bring us in it. We already had the database
Right.
system and
Right.
how to do intake and how to get clients. So it was pulling that in and then just kind of figuring it out really
Right.
along the way.
Right.
Because there was no
Right.
patent for it. I mean, this is just a new idea.
Right.
Judge, you're always in the middle of these great programs. I mean, this is
that.
well. I mean, look, like I said, Jerome and I joked last week about the mediation program because I mean, again, the first time I ever saw that program, it was interesting. And I saw a lot of things get resolved. And again, sometimes people just need to hear hear somebody else what they got
That's
to
true.
say.
Right.
And if you got somebody that's going to sit down and say, "Look, I heard you. Y'all both saying the same thing. Why don't we just do this and go about our business?" So when you look at this program, this is another program, and this is a program that is for the benefit of the people.
Yes.
So I don't know why anybody would not. I've asked a lot of. I don't call them stupid questions. I call them inquiring questions.
No, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, but this is a program that I think that everybody should want to get on board with, because we don't want people living on the street.
That's for sure.
There's people that do live on the street, and I don't want to sound flippant, but that may be because of choice. But when you got a family and kids, that's not where they want to be.
That's right.
No, it's not. And I'm going to tell you how they end up in the substandard houses.
Okay.
It's usually a female with 2 or 3 kids. She's got 2 jobs, but she lost her job, and she literally was either living in a car, and I'm not kidding you,
Right.
with the kids, or family members scattered everywhere because she couldn't place everybody in one. The aunties got one, the sisters got another one. She's going from pillar to post. So when she sees a property, and she knows it's in a rough area, but the rent's low and she can afford it, but she knows there are problems, and the landlord says, "Oh, we're gonna fix all that. Here's a move-in. You just sign the lease on his word."